That's not in my heart. I wasn't coming for anyone like that. I apologize, but that was not me. That's not in my heart. And like I said a few moments ago, I have a solid, demonstrable record of shared power that's real and concrete. That can't be misinterpreted.
Join Tavis Smiley and an all-star panel of political insiders, influencers, and journalists for a look back at the crisis that shook LA City Hall when 4 Latino leaders were caught on tape making racist, demeaning, and derogatory statements about black people and other fellow citizens on Monday, October 9th, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. The tape, 1 year later. We're broadcast live in afternoon drive from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. When all was said and done, was more said than done. 1 year later. Are there fractures in LA's black-brown political partnership? And where do we go from here? Don't miss The Tape, 1 year later. Only on KBLA Talk 1580, Monday, October 9th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. We've got a lot to talk about.
One, two, three, go! Try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com. That's thetavisSmileyShow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the podcast of Tavis Smiley at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, President Joe Biden must have heard us last week on this program. In a historic move, the president announced over the weekend that he will join auto workers tomorrow on the picket line in Detroit. As the UAW strike continues to escalate, insights into the strike and its growing political relevance with distinguished scholar in African American and labor history, Dr. Michael Honey. That's in hour 2. In our third hour, we'll be joined by comedian and Academy Award-winning actress Monique and actress Countess Vaughn to talk about their lawsuit against CBS and Paramount. Monique and Countess have sued CBS and Paramount for unpaid residuals from the success of their hit show, The Parkers. Kind of sounds like the Dave Chappelle moment some months back. They want to shed light on their concerns about fair compensation as advocates for equity within the entertainment industry. In case you didn't hear, the WGA, the Writers Guild, came to an apparent agreement last evening with the powers that be in this city. So the Hollywood writers' strike has now reached a tentative deal with studios after a months-long strike. So in light of that, a conversation about the ways in which talent in this town is often disrespected. We will talk with Monique and Countess Vaughn in hour 3 about their fight now against CBS and Paramount. We commenced today's show talking politics with the editorial director and publisher of The Nation magazine, our friend Katrina Vanden Heuvel. Katrina, how are you today?
Thank you, Tavis. Not enough news happening.
Yeah. As you know.
Another quiet Monday.
Yeah.
We enter the week.
As you know, in this business, it's either, in our business, it's either feast or famine. Some days nothing's happening.
True.
And other days too much is happening. And today is one of those too much is happening days. Let me jump right in and make the most of our hour here. As I mentioned a moment ago, we're gonna drill down more on this in our second hour for the entire hour. But I cannot start today's conversation without, of course, getting your taking your temperature on this news that the president, in a historic move, is going to appear in Detroit tomorrow to join the picket line with these workers. What's your read of that?
Oh, I mean, I think it's historic. It's symbolic, but symbolism is power.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's been, as you mentioned, you've been talking about it last week. We, of course, at the Nation had been urging the president to take this step. What's most important, though, Tavis, is that Biden, in the quiet ways, has put through some really serious, important pro-labor personnel and changes to, for example, the National Labor Relations Board actions. And it's that framework into which he walks, so that it's not just, nothing. Mm-hmm. But I think it's also important. At this point, 75% of Americans side with striking UAW numbers. That's really a powerful number. It may change. Strikes get more complicated as they go on. But I think that's a very powerful number. And I think it's the case in many instances, even though Republicans and Democrats have not been siding with labor. But Republicans, if they have a return on investment when they give money to candidates, it's lower taxes, deregulation, and fighting unions, anti-union. Mm-hmm. So I think we're in an interesting time in this country's history where, we've seen Democrats not really stand with labor, but it's happening in a resurgence. On the other hand, when you look at the numbers, I think it's some 9 or 10% of private industries unionized. Mm-hmm. So it's a tough landscape, but it's been a very interesting one this past summer and heading into the fall.
Yep. Let me ask you right quick, and we'll move forward here. Donald Trump put a big statement out, I guess this morning. I saw it this morning on his True Social, and he went in on Joe Biden. And I don't want to even take time to read it, but the essence, the essence of his commentary on True Social is that he came out first and said he was going to Detroit. And had he not done that, Joe Biden would not be going to Detroit. I sort of echoed that last week on this program. I was troubled by the fact that I thought, at the moment at least, he was allowing himself to be outmaneuvered by Donald Trump. And I couldn't understand why he was taking so long to make this decision and why he pulled his team back. The White House, with no officials were actually going to Detroit. They were negotiating from Washington, all the stuff. So my quick question is whether or not he was outmaneuvered by Trump, or whether that's much ado about nothing at this point now that he's going tomorrow.
Listen, I don't think he was outmaneuvered, and I think a lot of working people are seeing through Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Talks a good game, talks about factory jobs coming back, but is it the case? It's not 2016 when, in fact, he did woo labor effectively. I think Biden moves too slowly sometimes, but I don't think that's the essence of the story right now.
Okay. Point well taken. He does move slowly, but they say better late than never, I guess. He will be on the picket line tomorrow. Historic move to see a president walking the picket line with striking workers, in this case, the UAW. Just getting started in this hour talking politics, and there's a whole lot to drill down into with Katrina vanden Heuvel, editorial director and publisher of The Nation magazine, who you're listening to right now on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfection like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Deal it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac, Cadillac, Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SAHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
Applications are now being accepted for the City of Los Angeles Emergency Renters Assistance Program. The program provides up to 6 months of rental arrears to low-income residential renters who are at risk of homelessness due to unpaid rent as a result of COVID-19 or other financial hardship. Applications will not be accepted after 6 p.m. on October 2nd, 2023. Go online 24/7 at housing.lacity.org or call 888-379-3150 from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and see if you qualify. Apply today.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dominique DePrima from the show First Things First, weekday mornings from 6 to 9. Join us tomorrow and get the details on LA's rent relief program with Housing Assistant General Manager Anna Ortega. Plus, we'll talk with the deputy mayors of public safety and community safety. Featuring decision makers, movers, and shakers, we are KBLA Talk 1580.
Anyone can choose to make a difference. You can help people succeed, rebuild after disasters, protect the environment, or feed the hungry. Not only will you make a difference for others, but for yourself. You can earn money for college, learn career skills, and make friendships that last a lifetime. Make a difference. Choose your future. Choose AmeriCorps.
If you're a veteran with a service-connected disability that is directly impacting your ability to work, resources are available to help you find employment. VA's Veteran Readiness and Employment, or VR&E, can assist you with finding a job that uses your existing skills. Or, if you're interested in exploring a new field, a VR&E counselor can help you determine the right education or training options for a new career. Find out if VR&E is right for you by visiting va.gov/VRE today.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
Hey, Katrina Banton, before I move on, you made a comment a moment ago or moments ago about the fact, and you're right about this, that there is a narrative that underscores that at times even Democrats have not stood with labor. Joe Biden has long, touted and bragged about the fact he's the best president labor's had in a long time, maybe back to FDR. But this comment you made didn't slide past me. I'm sure it didn't slide past our audience. That even though Democrats frame the conversation or put themselves forward as being friends of labor, they haven't always stood there.
No, they haven't, and they have had opportunities when you had majorities in the House and the Senate to pass pro-labor legislation. Card check, PRO Act was passed under Biden. But, Jimmy Carter presided over deregulation, which hurt labor. Clinton was someone who was like New Democrat. They didn't do what Reagan did, which was break the back of the air controllers. I mean, not as far as that, but they did not stand with labor, partly because the Democratic Party, Tavis, you know this, is divided. I mean, there's an insurgent force. There's a more progressive force. There's a force that sides with workers, and there's a side that takes a side with corporate power. And I think that's a factionalism that continues. Yeah. But I do think Biden has proved, there's more to do, but he's doing what he can do in this time. Again, pushed, though, by outside, by the movements of our time and the resurgence of labor's identity. So that's important, too. You can't – listen, Roosevelt was passed some of the foundational legislation for the labor movement, but he had to be, go out. Don't just tell me to do it. Go out and make me do it.
Nope. I've said many times that great presidents aren't born; they're made, and
they
have to be pushed into their greatness. And left to their own devices, they end up being just garden variety politicians, right? If you don't push them into their greatness, and Joe Biden had to get pushed this time around,
So October 11th in New York City is a marker of the 100th anniversary of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, when almost 100 young women immigrants died in the fire because the employers kept the doors locked. It took Frances Perkins, the first woman labor secretary under Roosevelt, to really put in place some of the regulations which protect people. Elizabeth Warren came and spoke there during her campaign. But that took, people who knew the inside. You need the allies inside, the people in the streets.
The UAW, up until this present moment, as you know, has not endorsed Joe Biden. I don't know to what extent that reality pushed him to get to Detroit tomorrow to be on this picket line. And I'm not so sure. Yeah, I'm not so sure there's any chance they would endorse Donald Trump. But there are others who are running, Cornel West and others who are out there running for the presidency. I raise that only because I'm curious as to how you read the fact that up until this present moment, they have not, UAW, has not endorsed Joe Biden for re-election.
So I think that's a really important question. You have also not just a new labor movement, but you have new labor leaders. And Sean Fain of the UAW is a more radical labor leader than some. They're different forces. And I think he understands that he has leverage now because he has not endorsed. There's not good blood about this. You can imagine the White House is like, what? I assume he will. But I'll tell you, the labor movement is also progressive and pragmatic. And they want to not just bread and butter, but, they want to see more power in labor movement's house. Mm-hmm. So that's partly what the back and forth is. And I do think the insurgent forces of those candidates you mentioned, the three, Marianne Williamson and Cornel West and Bobby Kennedy Jr., who isn't as strong on labor, I don't think. I don't think the labor movement is going to ally with them, not the big ones, because they don't see a road forward in the electoral process at this moment. But they certainly are going to push Biden as far as they can.
Yep.
And there are limits.
Yep. Now, the other issue you raised I want to get to right quick is the poll data that you cited, which I have seen, that over 70% of Americans side with the UAW strikers. Over 70% of Americans side with him. Yeah. That's a huge number, particularly in a moment where we can't seem to agree on anything in this country. To get anything above 50%, much less 70% and above, in agreement with these striking workers is a big freaking deal. How do you read that in this moment?
I read it as more top-down than left-right at its best, because I think what you're seeing are people who understand the auto companies were in a bad place, and labor gave some concessions, but also that, you look at the compensation. You're talking millions and millions of dollars. It used to be that the difference between what a worker made and a CEO was like 61 to 1. It's now like 350 to 1. Mm-hmm. So there's a sense that we need we're not talking revolution here. I don't think the UAW is, in that spirit, but it's a level playing field, which is all American. And so finding a way to recoup some of what they gave up, the auto companies a decade ago, seems fairness. And I think that is part of the American character. Now, listen, labor unions are flawed. Mm-hmm. There is, lack of democracy often, but it's a vehicle in this country's kind of reformist social democracy to build some equality.
Yep. So the numbers are what they are. Over 70% of Americans support these striking workers. Again, the numbers are the numbers. The numbers don't lie. And yet I'm wondering how, your prior comment notwithstanding, I'm wondering how, and I'm trying to imagine ways in which Donald Trump will manipulate, will exploit that kind of economic populism.
He's done a good job. You know that, Tavis.
Yeah.
I mean, he plays it well. It's smart in a way, though it seems to me not fully participating in our system, that he's not doing the debates, but I do think it's different than 2016. Part of the reason his polls seem strong is the barrenness. I mean, there are no candidates touching him right now, right? I mean, no one's kind of made a deal with the American people. But if you look at all the promises, there's so many broken ones. There are many, and then the media piece. Tavis is part of this. I think there's a media malpractice, which we've talked about. Media malpractice in the coverage of Trump. I mean, the Meet the Press stuff. I'm not talking about his own media, but Meet the Press or even Fox. But Meet the Press interview with him was, kind of what? It would like he rolled over the anchor, and I think the tough scrutiny questions get you to a point. I'm not idealistic about it, but I think it's important. So I think there are a lot of ways to expose Donald Trump's kind of half-assed, relationship with the labor movement. I mean, I I saw Jimmy Hoffa Jr. this past weekend. Don't ask me why. But, he had some talks with, he's not there anymore, but he had talks with Teamsters who voted for Trump last go round. And there's some of them interested in like Bobby Kennedy Jr. He's, not Trump.
Yeah.
They're moving out of there, but he thinks they'll vote for Biden in the end because they again understand, they have needs, and it's not clear an insurgent force like Bobby Kennedy Jr. is going to provide that.
Let me probe that for a second. I was with I was talking to Cornel West about this issue not long ago, and I want to just get your read on this.
Sure.
So when you have a moment like this, and this is not unique in that there are other moments where a third-party candidate tried to raise up and he got smacked down. So this is not the first time we've this ain't the first rodeo.
Sure.
But it seems to me, and again, I want to really probe this with you. It seems to me that so long as everybody inside says that now is not the time for a third-party insurgency, now is not the moment for that, the stakes are too high. Well, you can make that argument perennially. And in that regard, as people get more and more disappointed with both the left and the right, with Democrats and Republicans, that argument is starting to ring hollow with me. I'm not stuck on stupid. I get the point that we do not want to do anything that gives Donald Trump an entree back to the White House. I get it. But I'm trying to drill a little deeper, Katrina. If that's the argument, that argument will always be made that the stakes are too high and you will never have another choice in this country. And I'm not sure I like that idea.
I agree with you. It doesn't seem American. But let me give you three ways to think about it.
Give it to me.
Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader wrote his first article for The Nation in 1959 on safe cars you can't buy. He ran, as you know, 2000, again in 2004. In 2000, the magazine The Nation was divided between supporters of Nader and Gore. We had a Molly Ivins rule. She was a great Texas writer. Like
Loved
if you
her.
lived in
Loved
a
her.
state,
Yeah.
if you lived in a state where the electoral college didn't matter, vote your heart. If you didn't, vote your conscience. That is primitive, but I do think we need serious reforms. Not too many, but a few before we can have a real national third party that doesn't become the S-word spoiler. Electoral college reform, which was close, then Trump kind of came in. But we need, things that will move third parties in a serious way. Third parties at the local level or the state level is something to look at. I mean, or a third force like a fusion party, the Working Families Party in New York City has played a good role. We have an article in The Nation about the need for an insurgent force, which is bringing together the movements and the issues. But I do worry that it is. I want someday to be able, and not just to vote for someone I value, not just because better, the lesser
two evils. Yeah, exactly. I don't like that frame, and I don't like being regarded as the devil incarnate because I want to support somebody who may not be one of the two major nominees for the two party system. As if I don't have a right to use my vote the way I want to use it in a way that I think betters our democracy. But if you do that, then everybody calls you the bad guy. Cornel West is the bad guy.
Wrong.
Bobby Kennedy's the bad guy. All their supporters are bad people. I don't like that frame, Katrina.
But you know what, Tavis, you're absolutely right. The demonization of third parties closes off conversation, leads people to think you're, a fool or dangerous. That is wrong. Listen, I think Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s thinking about vaccination, to me, it rings wrong, to say the least.
Sure.
I think what he says about corporate power, what he says about the world and how to engage the world, and others, Cornell does too, is I'm closer to that than anything. But I still believe that if I haven't voted for someone I really admire. Well, I voted for Bernie, but he didn't move forward.
Yeah.
But I do think I see Bobby Kennedy's foreign policy matters a lot to me. I don't understand how Biden is doing it pretty well at home, but the foreign policy to me is kind of policing the world when we should be rebuilding at home. I'm not an isolationist, but I think the world is not divided into autocracy and democracy. It's a much more complex situation. So, but I'll tell you, the third party person, Eugene Debs, he did run for president from president. He got 2.3. But, Perot got 19%.
Sure. I just
so,
think,
with some money.
Yeah. I just think the political paradigm has shifted.
Yep.
And it's time to build a new construct. And I think that new construct has got to include other choices, not just the two that we're told if we don't choose from or select from, then it's bad for the democracy. I digress on that point. Let me ask you this, and I've got 2 minutes here now. We'll continue when we come forward. But since we're talking about government, we're just days away from a possible government shutdown. Let me ask you a big question. We'll unpack it when we come forward. But how are you reading this moment that has us on the precipice of another government shutdown?
Well, those who will get hurt by it are the most vulnerable. And what is always despicable to watch is why do those who hate government run to be inside government?
Good question. Good question. Yeah, good question.
And I think that these fractious, I hate to see freedom associated with their caucus.
Mm-hmm.
They're in it for all kinds of reasons. The idea of freedom is not one. There is a hatred of government spending because they see it as the alien. They don't see government, and government has issues, but it often helps those who need help. And it's, they're not going after Social Security and Medicare, which is really the biggest part of the debt. They're doing symbolic, ugly moves to shut down government. And then, as you know, there's the spin about who's going to lose that fight. Mm-hmm. And, they're going to work hard to try and see the Democrats lose. I don't think they'll work it. But it goes on too often. It's like madness, right? Insanity. It's like the repeat of what you continue to do.
Yeah.
But it could be, it could be a revolt that McCarthy doesn't seem to have control, and we saw him get elected right to the speakership. Didn't seem to have much control then, and it's not a healthy sign.
Yeah. When we come forward, we'll talk more about what's driving this government potential government shutdown, and whether Kevin McCarthy can figure out a way to pull back from the brink and get these Republicans in line so as not to bring the government to another standstill. And if in fact that does happen, is McCarthy going to pay a price the way that Newt Gingrich paid a price? Years ago? Katrina sort of teed that up. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Robert Menendez. This story is amazing to me. I just shake my head. I mean, this guy was indicted like 6 years ago, right? And now he's been indicted again. News just out now. He has said today he will not step down. More and more Democrats are calling for Robert Menendez to step down. You don't want a story like this around election season that can be used to taint and to target and to tarnish other Democrats who are running for high office. We'll talk about that. You may have heard the Hollywood writer's strike is over. There's a tentative deal. We'll talk about that a bit. So a great deal more to cover with Katrina Vanden Heuvel, the editorial director and publisher of The Nation magazine, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Ray Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network.
It's been very rough, and this wind here is killing me. I mean, I think it's a 20-mile-an-hour wind.
Post-tropical cyclone Ophelia continues to weaken and move offshore after dumping heavy rain from North Carolina to New Jersey.
Thousands of homes and businesses still in the dark after winds of up to 70 miles an hour damaged power lines.
Forecasters say the system produced rainfall across portions of the mid-Atlantic to southern New England over the weekend.
And so I decided to come and visit with you today.
Vice President Kamala Harris will visit Atlanta, Georgia this week as part of her Fight for Our Freedoms initiative. Administrative officials say Harris will meet and engage with students at historically black colleges and universities, including Morehouse, Spelman, Clark Atlanta, and Morris Brown. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Seeing troubles working in Diamond Bar. It's going to be a broken down vehicle in Glendale and a collision for downtown. Taking that 10 west at Hoover. Looks like that left lane is blocked. The 110 north from Florence up to the 10, things are busy. Stalled vehicle in Gardena on the 110 south at El Segundo Boulevard. That's on the right shoulder. Glendale, somebody broke it down on the 134 east as you get towards the 2. Looks like they're in the center divider. And trying to clear troubles in Diamond Bar. It's a wreck on the 57 south at Pathfinder. That has slowed us as far back as the 60s.
Wendy's new breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles lets you choose from your fave 4, including a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in a combo. Single item at regular price.
Bank of America has powerful digital solutions for local and global businesses, so you can make every move matter. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America, N.A. Copyright 2023.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. The Chargers get their first win of the season. They win by 4 at Minnesota. A monster game for wide receiver Keenan Allen and quarterback Justin Herbert. 18 catches for 215 yards for Allen. He also threw a 49-yard touchdown pass to wide receiver Mike Williams. Herbert was 40 of 47 for 405 yards and 3 TDs. The Rams are at Cincinnati tonight, 5:15 kickoff on ESPN. This could be an interesting week for USC coach Lincoln Riley. The Trojans play at Colorado Saturday morning. The previous 2 coaches who went up against Colorado coach Deion Sanders, Oregon's Dan Lanning and Jay Norvell of Colorado State, both of them took time to do some trash talking aimed at Sanders. We'll keep tabs on Riley this week to see if he does the same thing. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
All right, team. Apps on the table by 7:30 sharp.
Jalen and his catering company have a lot on their plate.
Really particular.
He needs a bigger team to continue climbing up the food chain.
Throughout this event. Hey, Mitch, was that contract for 200 or 250 people?
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Our hiring platform instantly connects you with quality candidates, and you can schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from the Indeed dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 85% water, right?
85% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Ooh, pass me the intercom thingy.
Attention shoppers. If you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Don't pay for water. Pay for clean. If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Pods.
Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
Katrina Vanden, who was our guest in this hour, editorial director and publisher of The Nation magazine, always delighted to be in dialogue with her and hear her unique insights as the head of The Nation magazine. Katrina, we were talking about Kevin McCarthy and his Republicans. Before I move off of that right quick, is there anything he can do at this point as we hurtle toward this government shutdown, or is he at the mercy of these rabid Republicans in his caucus?
Well, I think, he could pass a few of the funding bills, but that's not going to deal with the real problem. Because what you have is, over the last few years, a transformed ideological political landscape. And these Republicans, fractious Republicans, are responding more to what's at home, the primaries, the money. So they don't feel inclusive in the Congress. So I think that's part of what's going on. So I don't know. I wouldn't bet anything right now. And I think then the big fight, as you've said, is the Gingrich fight, so to speak. Who's going to bear responsibility with the voters as we
and to your brilliant question, that's why you're the publisher of the magazine, The Nation. To that, to answer your own question, who will bear the brunt of this if, in fact, we see a shutdown?
You know, as I said earlier, media plays a big role. The spin machines and the way the Democrats respond, if they do so intelligently and speak to the needs of Americans. You know, the Biden thing is not just empty. I mean, you have a push for lower prescription drug costs, those kinds of things. And you get into the Social Security, Medicare piece of it, they're going to lose because underneath this sort of smaller package they're doing, as I said, those are the two drivers, Social Security, Medicare, and the hatred of government. So that's not going away anytime soon. And Trump, in his own way, has played that effectively. Mm-hmm. So I can't bet. I can't bet right now. Yeah. It's going to be a short-term fight, a mid-term fight, and a long-term fight. Mm. That's all
Let me ask you a broader question, since you sort of walked around the edges on this. Let me come right to it. What do you make of the debate or not, the conversation or not, and moreover how we ought to have the conversation about the proper role of government? I'm always prepared to engage in dialogue about government and what its proper role ought to be. Once again, I just don't like the frame that we find ourselves in every time when that topic comes up. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. I think, government can be overbearing. Mm-hmm. Government can be distant. Government can be bureaucratic. But at the same time, remember the Tea Party moment when the guy said, "Get government's hands off my Medicare"? Mm-hmm. There's been a morphing of thinking about government as something that is alien, and people are fearful of it in some instances. But I think community is part of government. I think government is what provides the possibility, Tavis, that we could have lived in a country with half the poverty, 3/4 less of the poverty. We saw government playing a role in that. Mm-hmm. So I think you need to keep it specific, what government provides, what it doesn't. It shouldn't do everything, but it plays an enormous role. And I think we need to find a way to humanize it, because the right has done a very smart job of making it not just Reagan. Remember Reagan, had his lines about government, mm-hmm. but Bill Clinton, one of the first things he said when he took office was a kind of diss on government. Mm. I just think there has to be some connection that is not just about how dangerous it is. And I think that's played out a lot.
Yeah. One of my favorite books, I mentioned it probably a couple weeks ago in another conversation. It just popped up in one dialogue. But I love the book that Mario Cuomo wrote years ago called Reason to Believe. And I think he made the best argument, laid it out brilliantly in this text about reason to believe in government and the way we ought to have a conversation about government's proper role. The way we're doing it right about now is asinine. I digress on that point, but I think there's a debate to be had about that reality moving forward in this country. Let me stay with Congress, since we're talking about Congress. Robert Menendez, senator out of New Jersey.
Sorry.
She's laughing already. She's laughing already. This guy was indicted like 6 years ago. He's been indicted again. Now, years ago when he got indicted on the same kinds of allegations, basically taking bribes in exchange for exerting political influence. He's a Democrat, of course. He's the senior senator from the state of New Jersey, the Garden State. Indicted years ago, he survived on a hung jury. Years later, he's been indicted again, and as I read the allegations from years ago and the allegations this time around, these seem to be much worse, to my read at least, than the allegations the first time around. But he has said earlier today in his first public comment since the indictment that he is not going to resign. He will not step aside, until all the facts come in. I believe I'll be exonerated. The typical line. Now, here's why I'm ambivalent about this. I'm ambivalent because I do believe that we live in a nation where people are, in fact, and certainly should be presumed innocent until proven guilty. So in that regard, due process, fundamental fairness, presumption of innocence. I've said that all along. So in that regard, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. On the other hand, when you've been indicted twice in a matter of years for the same kind of behavior, alleged behavior, as a United States Senator, I have issues with that. And because you're a Democrat, you and I both know Republicans are going to use this because he won't step aside to just whipsaw other Democrats because of the behavior of Menendez. That's my read. That's not important. What's your take on it, Katrina?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Listen, it's like, first of all, I think of Al Franken.
Mm-hmm.
Al, he was out of there in 30 minutes because the Democratic team wasn't ready to give him due process.
That's right.
Fair trial. And, we're not going to talk about that right now, but I just think about it. Menendez, these are far worse indictments. He was acting essentially as a foreign lobbyist. I mean, he was, moving money to Egypt. I don't want to demonize countries, but just the process of being a senator. Are you a senator or are you a lobbyist?
Mm-hmm.
Are you bought by a government or are you independent and representing your constituency? And I don't think he was doing the job that he was elected to do. And I suspect, based on the senators who have said they want him to have a fair trial, I suspect he'll stay. He's not going to move. But I think he should be, the court of law. In the court of law, he should find his ending. I will say that Andy Kim, I think, has already announced he will be running. I think it does tarnish the Democratic Party as it moves toward a very difficult election. Of course, New Jersey, state I went to school in, is a complicated state.
Yes.
And, it might have more, how to put it, alignment or affection for Menendez. I don't know that. I do know that, and again, I care a lot about the world and America's engagement with the world. I was interviewing the Cuban president when the indictments came down. There was not much comment, but there was certainly a sense that someone who has played a role in keeping us from a more sane foreign policy with Cuba dialogue is also in trouble. So I just raised that because Menendez is not just gold and, refrigerator and money being slipped to Egypt, but it's a broader indictment of someone.
Yeah. I'm wondering how those senators who are suggesting that he ought to be given a fair trial, I'm wondering about the ways in which the Democrats in the Senate are compromised and may not be willing to push him out so quickly because of how tight the numbers are in the Senate. And yet New Jersey has a Democratic governor. I'm not sure if it works in New Jersey like it does in California. If he steps aside, whether the governor appoints him, I don't know how that works. But is there anything to that issue that the Democrats are going to walk gently on this because he's a Democrat and the numbers are so tight?
Well, look at Senator Feinstein too. I mean, that's where you would have a Democratic replacement, of course.
Yeah.
But that is always part of the consideration on the part of Democratic leadership. They need their majority.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, as I understand it, the governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy, has the right to appoint a successor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you followed this, Tavis, but for example, in Kentucky, where they have a Democratic governor, the state legislature has changed the rules. So he has no power to appoint a successor. That is not the case here, but that is a serious consideration.
And they've done
very transactional, but our politics.
Sure. And they've done that in Kentucky for all the obvious reasons, because Mitch McConnell keeps having these moments where he freezes in public. And were he to have to step aside, a Democratic governor in Kentucky would do something that Republicans wouldn't like. And so they stripped him of that power. Politics is amazing to me. I've been covering it for years, but they see it in the offing, and they're like, we're going to stop this right now. So they just changed the rules in Kentucky. So the governor can't do that in the event that McConnell ends up having to step aside. I digress. More when we come forward with Katrina Vanden Heuvel on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth. Speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Every business seeks an advantage, whether it's having the best location, hiring top talent, or spotting trends before they happen. And now, the United States Postal Service can give your business a new advantage. Introducing USPS Ground Advantage. Reliable and affordable 2 to 5 day package shipping. It's the advantage you need at the price you want. Get the Ground Advantage at USPS.com/advantage. The United States Postal Service, delivering for America.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
My check engine light's on?
That could hurt your gas mileage. The AutoZone free Fix Finder service can help find the fix for free.
Get in zone.
This whole report for free?
That's right, printed and on your phone for free.
Get in zone.
But what if the fix is too tough?
We'll recommend a local shop. Fix Finder, only at AutoZone.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Have you heard about Lendistry? Lendistry is a national black-led small business lender that is headquartered right here in LA. Once you've started your business, Lendistry provides flexible financing options starting at $50,000 to help you access the affordable capital needed to grow. Whether financing is needed to increase working capital, acquire a business, purchase inventory and equipment, or refinance debt, Lendistry has a solution for you. Lending products range from traditional business term loans and non-revolving lines of credit to SBA 7A loans and commercial real estate financing. Lendistry's pre-application process is simple and does not impact your credit score. Visit lendistry.com/KBLA to learn more and to get started with an application right from the website.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Katrina, before I talk about the Hollywood writers' strike, which has now reached a tentative agreement with studios, a quick question, one final question on the Senate. We were talking about moments ago, given the conundrum, the dilemma that Robert Menendez now finds himself in. I saw a piece you wrote recently in The Nation about the fact that Democrats have to keep the Senate, that is, at all costs. You want to unpack that for those who didn't hear that, didn't get a chance to read that column?
It was really a column about Sherrod Brown, a long-time progressive, multiracial populist in a state that's going increasingly red.
Ohio.
And Ohio, J.D. Vance won the last round, beating a pretty centrist Democrat. So it was in that context. I think the Senate is going to be tough. I think the House less so. But I would, that headline wasn't mine, okay? It was The Guardian. But I would have said, this was a case of why, let's do what we can to keep Ohio and Sherrod Brown's. You're not going to get a better candidate than Sherrod Brown. But I don't think we can say at all costs. Yep. I can't say that,
Yep. No, it's going to be.
Because I think there are other things to do with, for 1 second, I just think there's one more to do, we could do with the court, even if we don't have the Senate. But the court is obviously one of the reasons the Senate is important, but not at all costs.
Yep, I'll take your point. Hollywood writers' strike. This is breaking news last night. Of course, this program is heard across the country in syndication, which I'm grateful for. But we're flagshipped here in Los.
Congrats.
Thank you, appreciate that. We're flagshipped here in Los Angeles, and this is a big deal. Not just because it's the Hollywood, it's Hollywood. That's important, but because it makes a statement to me. This conversation now comes full circle about the power of unions when they flex. These writers pretty much got everything they demanded from these studios. That's like almost unheard of, but they flexed, and they got what they demanded, Katrina.
Absolutely, and I think you could tell that last night when they released, the Writers Guild released a statement, but the oligarchs of Hollywood were pretty quiet.
Yeah.
No, and I don't think a lot of Americans. I mean, I've done some sports commentary on like football unions.
Mm-hmm.
People don't understand that you need unions in Hollywood. You need unions in sports because not everyone is, the star making $6 million. There's a real industry. So I think that's important. I think the actors, the union is going to be a tougher fight, but they have wind at their back from the writers' win. But Iger saying, that there might be a strategy to starve writers because they couldn't last. These things, I think, stiffen the spine.
Yeah.
I will say politically, never forget that Ronald Reagan was head of the Actors Union for 4 terms.
That's right. He was indeed.
And voted for Roosevelt 4 times.
Yeah. Strange backstory to that Ronald Reagan guy. Our remaining moments for Katrina Vanden Heuvel when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between 2 turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
Gotta stay fresh, ma. House shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Venture X from Capital One is the travel card for people always asking,
where next?
You earn 10x miles on hotels and rental cars, and 5x miles on flights booked through Capital One Travel, and 2x miles on everything else you buy with Venture X. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges. The Venture X card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Sprinklers in the Rain and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on.
K-Drip. Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
Katrina, we're just over a year out now. As you know, we will a year from now be in that sprint between Labor Day and Election Day.
Yep.
For the next president of these United States. Just asking a broad question as we wrap up our conversation with these, again, 3 minutes left. How are you feeling at this point before we get to that moment where we head down the stretch?
Worried.
Yeah.
I feel worried. Trump is no longer president, so the 24 race can't be entirely about him. And I think there's an effort to make it about fear of Trump. Also, fear, legitimate fear of women not having access, people not, having access to abortion rights. But you got gas prices, you got all of this, and they can hang it, the Trump people, more effectively around the guy who's in office. Mm-hmm. So, but I do think, Biden's going to, he has to engage younger people, people of color, and I think we have to do in the media always careful auditing of what Trump is saying and what he's done. I didn't talk earlier, if I might just end by saying, one of the reasons people are motivated or trained to hate government is race. Mm. Race, and you think of how Reagan launched, we were talking about him as head of the Actors Guild, launched his campaign in Philadelphia, right, Mississippi.
That's right.
And there was a documentary on a few weeks ago you could see, and, you could see Trump's, the grandparents of Trump's voters. And I don't think it's all about race, because I think it's also about people left behind, people who are angry about deindustrialization. But there's certainly an element of race in the hatred of government. And, you mentioned Mario Cuomo. I would ask people to read Jesse Jackson's great speech. Was it at 84, 88 Democratic Convention about people living paycheck to paycheck, cleaning your rooms, hotel rooms.
That's right.
There's a humanity that people have lost, I think, in the hardening of our country's tissues. Yeah. But there's a lot in the government showdown that is going to hurt people. Yeah. And we lose sight of that with all the talk. But anyway, you.
I'm glad you raised it. I appreciate that. I'm glad you raised it, because sometimes in talk radio, particularly when you're as bright as Katrina vanden Heuvel is, we speak in shorthand sometimes. But let me just underscore right quick. The reason why she mentions Reagan in Philadelphia, Mississippi, that's where he announced his campaign for president. He'd been governor of California for 2 terms. So you ask, why does a California governor go to Philadelphia, Mississippi,
right,
to announce his campaign for president? Because that's where they killed Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney. And he wanted to give a nod to states' rights, make it abundantly clear on day one where he stood on these issues. And on that day, since that day, I've never forgiven Ronald Reagan, Katrina, for doing that.
Right.
It made it abundantly clear why I had no interest ever in this guy named Ronald Reagan to do something that low down, as I saw it, to go to Philadelphia where they murdered these 3 civil rights workers to announce your candidacy when you've been the governor on the other side of the country. But you go there to make a statement, and a statement he made, and it worked. It got him 2 terms. But no support from
and
one.
And it's metastasized through our political system. And I thank you for taking my shorthand staccato.
Nope, I got it. I just want to make sure the audience understood exactly why you made that reference. Katrina vanden Heuvel is the editorial director and publisher of The Nation magazine. I adore her. Always welcome her commentary to this program. Katrina, we'll do it again. All the best to you. Take care.
Hope so. Thank you, Tavis.
Hour 2 of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580.